Okay, welcome Kristin Westberg to Revenue Radio. Thanks for joining me. I recently saw you spoke at the Denver chapter of SCORE about go-to-market strategy. So I wanted to bring you in for those who didn't get to see you speak about it. It was so interesting to discuss go-to-market strategy with me. As a former fractional CRO, you've been in many leadership positions for multiple different companies at this point in your career. What are some common mistakes that you see when it comes to go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, great question. And it's a simple answer. The most common mistake I see is the fact that companies largely don't have one.
Right.
It's this go-to-market strategy is a complicated yet very, very simple approach that businesses should take to make sure that their product or service offering really has a strong defensible corner in the market. And most companies that I've come across tend to start with a founder entrepreneur who has an incredible idea or vision for a product or service that the market needs, usually based on their own industry experience and coming across the same challenge over and over. And when they introduce that product or service, the market reacts so positively. Usually that founder is relying upon their own network and they know people that have faced this same issue time and time again. And it's an easy sell,
Right.
And so what tends to happen is over time, a business is built up around that. But again, over time, other creative founder and entrepreneurs see that happening. So they introduce similar products to the market. Then you have economic changes or other changes in the market that change buyer needs or desires. And so if a business isn't constantly keeping a pulse on what's happening in the market and what their buyer and customer needs, they can lose touch. And what we find here at House of Revenue is those founders and entrepreneurs come to us, and usually they believe there is a singular issue inside their business. They say, I really need to fix, marketing. I need more leads. I need to fix sales. They aren't, generating and converting deals quickly enough or effectively enough. I need to fix my customer success because customers are churning and we're not creating the right experience for them. So we see this time and time again, and that quick fix, usually doesn't solve the problem unless there is a clear go-to-market strategy.
Right. So I think we see that very often, right? It's like, it's marketing's problem. We're having an issue with marketing,
totally.
Or we're having an issue. Sales just isn't closing enough leads, right? So, but how do we know? You have these leadership teams that are like, this is my business. I know my business, but what research or analysis can we do to figure out what the problem is?
Totally. It's a great question. Like I said before, it really comes down to having that defensible corner in the market. So what that really looks like is looking outwardly and understanding what is happening in the market. Have my customers evolved? Have my competitors evolved? Are there new competitors in the market? And really having a clear understanding of who your product or service is for and how you differentiate. And when you think about the research that needs to happen, it's inwards and outwards. You need to really look at your own customer data to understand, who are your most loyal and healthy client accounts, and what do they look like? Do they have any commonalities? Who are the customers that you're churning? Do they look similar? Maybe you're not the best fit for them. Who are the customers that are coming to you readily? And just having that understanding within your own data, but then also looking outwardly into the market to understand, where your buyer or the broader category that you fit, where is that unique buyer that your product or service perfectly aligns with? And also, who are the competitors that are also going after that niche? Because you really need a compelling, unique, differentiated story about the value you create. And that needs to stand out against your competitive set so that your product or service isn't considered a commodity, isn't considered the same as everyone else, because then you get into the price game and it's hard to win. You really need to have that connected story to tell your customer. And I'll give you a great example. So one of the first engagements that I worked on at House of Revenue was with a SaaS company. They provided on-demand video interview software. 15 years ago, they were first to market. It was an easy sell. You talk to businesses in almost any category, any vertical that do significant recruiting at scale, at volume, and to relieve hours and hours of recruiters' time in scheduling and hosting, conducting interviews, sharing feedback with the rest of the team, whoever the hiring manager is, all of that, to put it into a digital platform where, the software schedules the interview, the software conducts the interview, the software comes back to you with a synthesis of the candidate's skills and overall assessment. It was such an easy sell, and it wasn't a very expensive platform.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward to today, when you have numerous competitors that have entered the market, that have invested in AI and other shiny bells and whistles to create a much more robust platform, and it became harder and harder for this business to compete. Their real only differentiation was on cost, because as the other platforms invested in all these tools, they became more and more expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it's not a great, stable and healthy place to be in the market when your differentiation is cost.
Right. Exactly. And so, you mentioned multiple kind of data points here, your internal team, the competitors, the market. And I feel like our customers largely get ignored sometimes. Like, oh, it's just my sales team not making sales, or it's, someone released a competing product. So what other data can we get from our customers? Even knowing like, hey, I'm a CEO and I've been in this market for 20 years. So of course I know my customers, but what can change during COVID or inflation or whatever it is? Yeah.
I mentioned those two lenses, sort of inward and outward. And so to be very specific, when we approach go-to-market, when we're looking inward, the data we're specifically looking at are, when we look at our customer data, is there a clear segmentation inside of those customers, either vertically or industry oriented, either size, enterprise, mid-size or small? How do we categorize, segment that client database, that customer database? And then how do we understand the trends and the data that help us measure the health of those segments? So we look at customer acquisition cost. Where did we have to invest a lot of time and resources to acquire a new customer versus where did it just almost fall in our lap? Heavenly.
Isn't that nice?
I know. We look at how long have they been a customer? Has it been fairly easy to renew their business year over year? What has been our investment in servicing that customer? Is the platform meant for them and they can almost just self-serve and use it without a lot of added services and customer support from our side? Or have we had to, do a ton of customization, additional development, layered on a ton of, more resources to help support and make it easy for them to use the platform? So customer profitability, right, is a big lever. And then also, how has that account grown over time? Have they sort of stayed year over year purchasing the same product? Or have they added on, or have they, added more users? Have they, added more teams? Have they given referrals that have created new business? So all of this is very specific data that we can analyze to see, what unique customer segments really are the best fit. What are the easiest to generate leads, the easiest to convert, the quickest to convert, the lowest customer acquisition cost? Who has the highest lifetime value in terms of continued renewals, but also expansion and referrals. So this is the data we look at internally. Externally in the market, we want to first understand, is the market growing or shrinking, right? Is this need an expanding need in our current economy and market, or is it something that customers don't really need anymore? There are other alternatives and the market is shrinking. What does the competitive set look like? How many true like competitors are out there? How do they differentiate? So we look at their marketing. How do they talk about themselves? What words do they use? How do they share their value? How do they measure their customer success? all of those things. We secret shop. We look at how do they organize their sales. Are you talking to an SDR or BDR up front who's doing qualification and discovery? Are you then passed over to an account executive who can actually present solutions to you? What does that whole step-by-step process look like to get a pulse on how different each of our competitors sell and what that experience on the buyer side looks like? Talked about talking to customers. So also really deeply understanding, current, past, and hopeful future clients, prospects. How do they talk about the problem you're solving for them? How do they talk about their pain? Where do they go when they're looking for solutions? Who do they trust in their community? What channels do they trust to feed them accurate, quality information? All of this is so valuable because when you go to actually create your buyer and your customer journey, and you actually look at the way you connect with your buyer and your customer, are you using the right words? Are you telling them a story that connects and influences them? Are you serving them, in the need they have right now in this market? And so it's so informative to do that research. And going back to the company I was talking about earlier, gosh, when we, they came to us saying, okay, we need to fix sales, right? Our sales team is underperforming. They're not winning new business. We don't really know what they're doing, if our sales process is effective, ... So we did all these things. We said to them, we hear you. We also know that it is usually not a singular issue with sales. So we performed a full comprehensive go-to-market analysis. And what we did uncover is, when we looked at their data, the business they were churning, and they had a pretty significant churn challenge, was large enterprise accounts that were wooed away by these, big, shiny, competitive platforms that had all the bells and whistles, who they were winning with less friction, shorter sales cycles, and less cost up front, were smaller, very simple types of businesses that had very basic needs that wholly aligned with what the platform offered. And so it was such an aha moment to say, yes, we feel like we haven't advanced the product to compete in the market. Yes, it's very terrifying that we're churning some of our largest accounts right now. But when we talk about your sales organization, they're focused on trying to win this enterprise business, and they're not being successful. Your product fits this specific type of customer whose needs fully align, whose budget fully aligns, and now you can totally align your marketing and sales focus to go out and acquire this type of client. And lo and behold, when we talked to that client, and we understood the way they went through their buying decision, we learned that the majority of our target clients used a specific software to coordinate all of their sort of HR recruiting efforts in totality, but they didn't have an on-demand video interviewing platform. By forming a partnership with this particular software, it opened the door to such a wide reach of customers that fit that ideal client profile, and the sales team started doing great.
And I would imagine that was a very scary conversation to have with the leadership team of like, we're going to go away from the large enterprise. I think no tech company in the world wants to say, oh yeah, let's not go for the big companies, right? We want to work for the IBMs and the Googles and all of that. Yeah. But so props to you for effectively pivoting that strategy. Also, what I heard you say quite a bit is, you're discussing the marketing team and the sales team and the account executives, customer success. What is the importance of everybody kind of being on the same team? I think a lot of companies you see are very like, I work over here in the sales department. This person's in marketing. They sit over there and, we're over here. Like, what is the importance of having, I guess, clear messaging and clear, I guess, the customer journey like you were mentioning there?
Yeah. It's a great question. And it's interesting how a clear go-to-market strategy creates this incredible alignment across your marketing, sales, and customer success. So at House of Revenue, we use the Bowtie Funnel model. So that breaks apart the buyer journey and the customer journey. So a buyer on their journey goes through several stages to ultimately make that buying decision. They start with awareness. And so this is a great example because when the software came to market, they introduced a new product that didn't exist. So their buyers certainly felt the pain of all the time they were investing in coordinating interviews and, conducting interviews and doing debriefs and all of that. But it was kind of part of their job, and then all of a sudden you introduce technology, you introduce a tool that does it for them. And there's fear, there's uncertainty. But ultimately, you create an awareness that there is a problem that needs to be solved. There is a clear problem that businesses invest so many resources to hire at scale. And you have to start convincing them to feel that pain and create an urgency to solve for that problem. So that's what you do in the first stage of the buyer journey, which is create awareness of the pain and a real motivation to take action and prioritize solving that problem. Then you go through consideration. And that is largely where your buyer is now thinking, I've got this pain, I need to solve for it. What are my options? So understanding what your buyer does in that moment, where do they research? Who do they turn to for advice? How do they even talk about the problem they're trying to solve for? And in that consideration stage, what you're ultimately trying to convince them is that you have the right differentiated solution that perfectly solves their problem. And so you get into decision and purchase, and that decision is really about value. Again, going back to, I understand I have this problem. I believe you're the right solution, but how do I really quantify the value that I'm going to get for this? And when I think about those alternative offerings that are closest to you, how is your value truly unique and differentiated for my need? And then finally, purchase. And that usually comes down to making sure the way you've packaged and priced your services truly align with that value. So it is an easy yes to get your customer to sign the paper and pay their bill, right? So then you go into the customer journey, which starts with adoption, making sure that initial customer experience with your product or service really meets the needs or hopefully exceeds the expectations that they had when they actually finally said yes, after they'd finished that whole journey of making the decision to buy. And then from adoption, how do you really get them to continue to use and readily, repeatedly get value from the product or service so that you can retain them and get them to continue to be a customer long term? In expansion, it really is about truly understanding what else does your buyer need? Do you have other offerings, other services that complement what you're already selling to your customer? And can you enhance their overall package of services or products from you to serve a greater need and ultimately earn more revenue?
Upsell, yes.
And then on the expansion side too, it's, once you've really done all of those things and sort of excelled through those initial 3 stages of the customer journey, how do you turn that very loyal, ideal customer into a referral engine for you? They have others in their community that are facing similar challenges and have similar needs. How do you get them to refer more business to you so that you can kind of start the whole cycle all over again? So when it comes to marketing, sales, and customer success alignment, when all of these things are really clear, when you understand who your buyer is, what their pain is, how to talk to them about that pain, how to influence them, how to show the value you offer, how to actually produce the value that you say you offer, and create that incredible customer experience all the way through. You have this beautiful cyclical revenue generating wheel. Going back to that software platform, once they really understood, here is my ideal client, and created a buyer journey, we were able to, with marketing, actually condense the work they were doing, right? Reduce budget, reduce team size, and have a very, very focused brand strategy and lead generation strategy that was focused on this one specific customer segment. And then obviously working with this critical partner, we were able to really create a comprehensive and collaborative marketing approach to generate an incredible volume of leads through this partner. Then you have sales. Now they've got the ideal client raising their hand and saying, I'm interested in your platform. We were able to considerably shorten that sales cycle, dramatically increase conversion, because everything that sales was saying fully aligned with everything that got them to the hand raise. They were able to further validate this is the perfect product fit for my needs and my budget. And they were able to get to close so quickly. Then goes over to customer success. Well, they're not having to do all this custom development, add countless layers of customer support, be on call 24/7, answering all of these questions. It was the perfect customer for them. So it was practically turnkey. You switch it on, you are, able to help them if they do have questions, but then you're also able to develop all of these self-help tools, and your needs in terms of staffing and resources and expense on the customer success side diminished considerably. And the team members across all three of those teams were unbelievably happy because they were hitting their goals with truly less effort, right? It was super efficient. The business was thriving, and ultimately everybody wins. And it's a beautiful, magical thing that happens when you have that really clear understanding of who your buyer is. You craft that buyer and customer journey where all of those teams really complement, and you create so much cohesion and alignment that it just works.
Amazing. You painted such a great picture of all of that. Awesome. Well, I think I wanted to ask a little bonus question here.
Keep me on my toes.
Yes. So when a company comes to us and says, okay, I have a marketing problem, or I have a sales, a lot of times it's like, I'm a smaller business. I can only afford to invest in creating the perfect sales team.
Totally.
I can't afford to also optimize the marketing team, also do the customer success, and look at this holistically. I have to be realistic for my business. There's only 10 of us, right, in this company. So what is the value of having a fractional executive versus, and that looks at your whole Bowtie Funnel and your whole customer and buyer journey versus investing in all of these teams?
Well, there's so many paths that, a business leader or owner can pursue when they're, trying to grow revenue or overcome a plateau or a revenue deficit. There's path one, which is, okay, I'm going to go out and I'm going to hire all these people full-time, or maybe I'm just going to start with hiring a full-time revenue leader. Well, it's definitely more expensive. We know from data that Pavilion has published that the average tenure of a CRO is 18 months. I think a CMO is hanging on for even less time now. So you spend all that time recruiting, onboarding, getting them established only to turn them over and start all over again. So you've wasted time and definitely a considerable amount of budget. And also usually a full-time C-suite revenue executive has maybe incredible expertise when it comes to strategy and leadership, but in terms of actually executing any type of, marketing operations or sales, they're going to need to hire people, whether that's a third-party agency or full-time resources. So the costs keep mounting up, which is probably why that turnover happens so quickly. Other times businesses may decide to go the the cheapest route, which is I'm just going to hire an agency, but I have no real strategy or leadership or expertise sitting in that sort of middle seat between your founder or business owner and this agency. Well, any agency that purports to be able to drive revenue for you without a go-to-market strategy is lying.
Yes, they
because,
are.
Ultimately, again, if you don't know exactly who your ideal buyer is and how to talk to them and how to reach them, your marketing efforts will fail. They will not generate leads. And then your sales team will fail, and so on and so forth. So, to us, and in our experience, we have seen this, hiring a fractional revenue leader who can come in and really lead with strategy and true expertise and understanding go-to-market and also taking that time and making that upfront investment to do the research and understand who your ideal buyer is, how to talk to them, and how to reach them again, then you can set a clear marketing strategy, a clear brand strategy for how to create content that resonates and draws in your ideal client, a marketing strategy that's going to actually generate leads for you and also help grease the wheel for sales to actually convert deals and, consistently perform against their KPIs and then deliver great customers for your customer success team. So it is, having that fractional leader to guide your go-to-market strategy, and then also having those operational resources, and then you can hire an agency like Revenue Studio to work alongside your fractional leader to operate, on brand and marketing and even sales through Sales House. That's really the perfect marriage of services and support that founder, entrepreneur, business leader needs to solve that problem.
Great. Amazing. Well, I could talk about this all day.
Yeah,
that was really interesting. But you'll have to come back another time and we'll continue our go-to-market conversations. But thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you, Lauren.